Hello and welcome to Lord of the Board. My name is Sam Smith and today we are going to be doing an overview and strategy guide for Medusa in Unmatched Battle of Legends Volume 1. Before we go into any more detail, I just want to do a special thank you to today's sponsor, which is going to be Restoration Games, the creators of Unmatched. So if you've already bought Unmatched, then you've already been supporting them, but they actually have some other great games. So I left a link to their website down below. Definitely go ahead and check it out. As well as with all of these videos, we kind of do the same breakdown. I go through what exactly the character's move value is, what their special ability is, and kind of the overall make of the character. And then I proceed to go through all of the character's cards. Then at the end of the video, I'm going to go through 3 tips and strategies that will hopefully improve your gameplay with them. Today's going to be about Medusa, and Medusa is a very interesting character. It is the only one of the characters in this set that is ranged, so that definitely gives a natural boost to the character's strength. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the video. Medusa is a ranged character with 16 health. She has 3 move value. She also has 3 sidekicks, which are called her HARPYs, and each of them only has 1 health each. Now, Medusa's special ability says that at the start of your turn, you may deal 1 damage to an opposing fighter in Medusa's zone. Now, one thing to remember about this is that it's at the start of your turn, so all of your opponents will get a chance to escape the zone before it gets to your turn. So though it does seem very powerful, it's going to take a little bit of strategy in order to make it happen. Now let's go ahead and talk about her attack cards. Now we've got 2 attack cards that I want to talk about today, starting with Second Shot, which is a 3 value attack card. It has a 3 boost value, and it says that during combat, you may boost this attack. Now this can be a very, very powerful attack card, and one of the best cards to use to fuel its power is actually the other attack card that is Medusa specific, called Gaze of Stone. Now this is a 2 value attack card with 4 boost value, and it says that after combat, if you won the combat, deal 8 damage to an opposing fighter. Now, while this seems absolutely insane at first glance, it's actually something that's not going to be able to be used very often because you actually have to win the combat with only 2 attack. And so more often than not, I have found that using this as a boost for Second Shot is actually better to potentially deal 7 damage as opposed to never being able to deal the 8 of Gaze of Stone. But regardless, both of these cards are incredibly powerful and have potential to deal a ton of damage, so this will constantly make your opponent afraid to engage with you and to be attacked by you. Let's go ahead and discuss Medusa's defense card. Now, she only has 1 type. It is a 4 defense card, which is amazing. This has a 3 boost value. It's called Hiss and Slither, and its after combat effect says your opponent discards 1 card. This is one of the best defense cards in the game. It's extremely powerful. 1, this will soak up most of the damage that your opponent is actually attacking you with. On average, you'll be getting attacks of 4 to 5 to 6, which will only deal max about 2 damage to you actually with this as your defense card. It's just an extremely good card. And in addition to that, you're going to make your opponent discard a card. Now, one thing to note is that your opponent actually chooses the card to discard, so that does balance a little bit. But still, being able to take cards out of your opponent's hand is a really good benefit, especially if you're gaining cards. Both of those mechanics will give you a card advantage over your opponent, and as we know, cards mean power in this game. Now let's go ahead and talk about Medusa's scheme card. This is called a Momentary Glance, and this is a 4 boost scheme card that says to deal 2 damage to any one fighter in Medusa's zone. Now the reason why this is so cool is because it's just straight up deals 2 damage. This doesn't have to be an attack. This will not be able to be defended with a card by your opponent. It will just straight up deal 2 damage. Now, I like to look at this as having a couple of different options. Since it has such a high boost value, I like to use this as a boost card for my second shot. That can be very powerful and can help you take some of the pressure off of your gaze of stones. So, because you're able to do that, this can be a really good alternative. However, another way to look at this would be being able to deal that 2 damage can be so helpful. I mean, you could take out maybe the last 2 health of your opponent's sidekick, or maybe you have this towards maybe nearing the end of the game, and you see an opportunity where you can bring your opponent down to 0 by using this scheme card and then attacking or something like that. There are definitely times where this is going to be useful in that regard as well, but I would say that for more often than not, using this as a boost to second shot is going to be the better way to play this card. And now we've talked about all of Medusa's specific cards, let's go ahead and talk about her harpies. Now the harpies have 2 different kinds of versatile cards. We're going to start off by talking about the 4 value versatile card, the Hounds of Mighty Zeus. This has a 3 boost value, and it says that after combat, move each harpy up to 3 spaces. I do like this card. I definitely prefer this card as an attack card. The reason for that being that you can attack and then skedaddle out of there and move all of your harpies into a better position for next turn, or maybe perhaps lock in your opponent, making sure that they can't reach Medusa. So as an attack card, this just is a lot better. There's not really going to be very many cases where you're going to be attacked by a harpy and want to use this as a defense card, and you'll see why a little bit later. But that's going to bring us to the other versatile card, which is a 3 value, and this is called Clutching Claws. This has 2 boost value, and it says that after combat, your opponent discards 1 card. Now, I actually prefer this card as a defense card, and the reason for that is because usually with attacks, you're not going to be encountering very many feints, and one of the things that you like to do is make your opponent discard cards. This as a defense card is still really powerful with that 3 health. Now, there is a chance that you're still going to get dealt a hit and pass, but it's still pretty darn good, especially because soaking cards out of your opponent's hand is great, like I've been saying. So both of these cards complement the 3 harpies that you have in your deck really well, but the next card actually complements them even more, and it's something that is not specific to either Medusa nor the harpy, but this is a scheme card, and it is called Winged Frenzy. This allows you to move each of your fighters up to 3 spaces. You may move them through spaces containing opposing fighters, and then you return a defeated harpy, if any, to any space in Medusa's zone. This is incredible. This is a great scheme where you can position all of your harpies. Now, this is one that I would definitely not use if I don't have a harpy to replace. If you haven't lost a harpy, then don't use this card. But the moment that you've lost a harpy, this is an essential card to use and get that harpy back. Now you have 2 of these in your deck. You're going to find that a lot of the cards in Medusa's deck are about movement and being versatile with your positioning on the board, and this is just another one of those cards that shows that really well. Now we're going to look at the rest of the cards that can be used by either Medusa or her harpies. We're going to start with the ones that are more unique and then go into some of the basic ones. Starting with Dash, which is a 3 value versatile card. This only has 1 boost, and this says that after combat, you can move your fighter up to 3 spaces. This card's purpose inside of the deck is used to basically get away from your enemy and deny them of being close to you. So this is definitely a good attack card, as you could attack and then move away, which could help you for positioning. There are some times where I'll use this with my HARPYs as well, just because it really could be used either way, and sometimes your opponent's going to expect that you use the HARPY specific card, so surprising them with this could be interesting. Now Dash is an okay card, but the better card out of these is going to be Snipe. This is a 3 value versatile card with only 1 boost that says that after combat you can draw 1 card. Now I like to use this one as a defense because it's not very often that you're going to be feinted by your opponent with an attack, so it's really good. You can draw a card. That mixture of taking your cards away from your opponent and drawing your own cards is going to be so important. However, this is the only card that can really get you cards in your deck, so the card draw is really low with Medusa. I think this is balanced with the fact that you're going to be taking quite a few cards away from your opponent. And I would use this with either my HARPYs or with Medusa. I think it works really good for both. Now, talking about the basic cards, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about Feint, and the reason for that is because there is a video that goes into a ton of detail down below that a friend of mine made, so definitely support their channel and give it a watch. But the other basic card is going to be Regroup. Now, Regroup has a whole new purpose in Medusa's deck. This is a card that really is going to be used more effectively in Medusa's deck. Now, why is that? It's likely because your opponent is going to be very afraid of you. Your opponent's going to think that all of your attacks are going to be so powerful, or at least they're going to be afraid that they might be. So using regroups as attacks for bluffing is just so good. This is a really satisfying feeling when you're able to pull a feint using a regroup, and it just happens more often naturally with Medusa because your opponent will be so afraid of every attack for fear that maybe Gaze of Stone appears or a second shot. So we've looked at all of her cards, and as you can see, her deck is composed of many copies of multiple cards. Now this naturally increases the frequency at which you'll see these cards, and so this shows that Medusa, out of a lot of the other characters, is a very consistent character. She's one of the better ones in the game. Like putting her up against Alice. Alice is definitely more of a wild card, which is thematic to her character, whereas Medusa is definitely a bit more consistent with her playstyle, and you can kind of intend that you're going to be getting certain cards throughout the game. Now we're going to get into my 3 tips and strategies, and I'm going to start off with positioning. Now, why is positioning so important with Medusa? The reason why it matters so much is because those 3 harpies are technically 3 potential floating health that are just kind of walking around the board. And so by using them effectively, by positioning them in certain parts on the map, you're actually able to give Medusa more health, especially if they pass away and then get revived. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this. One would be to cover up all of the choke points that lead to Medusa, forcing your opponent to have to fight through a harpy in order to reach you. Or another way, and this one definitely used a little bit less but could be really helpful, is to put one of your harpies right up beside your opponent. That way you suck up one of their 2 actions on their turn and they fall for the bait, destroying your harpy. Now this is definitely a better play if you have that scheme card to get your harpy back, because keeping all 3 of your harpies on the board is going to be very important as well. So either of these are just ways to essentially suck the action economy out of your opponent and give Medusa more health by having them be the targets of your opponent's attack. And this will also suck up some of the attack cards that your opponent is using as well. So it's just a win-win-win. Now my second tip is to use fear to your advantage. Now what I mean by that is that Medusa is in a very privileged position in this game. She has a lot of powerful attacks and is a total fear on the battlefield. Your opponents will not want to engage with her, but they know that they must. Now, because of this, your opponents are never going to leave an attack completely undefended. They will always be using a card to defend against your attacks. Now, you can use that in order to flex a little bit, in order to posture yourself with a little bit more confidence. You can spend cards to attack that you didn't intend to do a lot of damage, and your opponent could waste a feint card. There's just so many more opportunities when you realize that your opponent is definitely afraid of your attacks and will likely do anything they can to avoid a gaze of stone. So this is definitely something to keep in mind. You can definitely mix it up and just play major mind games on your opponent. And my final tip is something that actually comes from my background in RTS gaming, playing games like Age of Empires, StarCraft, as well as Warcraft. This was a mechanic in that game that was called kiting. It was something that you could do with some of your units in the games. You could grab your unit and essentially move and then shoot your opponent, move and then shoot, move, shoot, move, shoot, and then your opponent would never actually be able to reach you and they would fall apart at your feet. Now, Medusa can do the same thing. In fact, it's awesome because this is literally Medusa's playstyle. She really excels by this. Now, you can maneuver and draw a card and then do an attack, and you could do that turn by turn. And when you're maneuvering, you can move away from your opponent to try to drive that distance and put your harpies in places to where your opponent cannot reach you, and then attack, repeat, attack. And that's really how you play Medusa. You don't want your opponent to be able to get to you. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the zones. You're going to want to be in the zone with your opponent, so don't move too far away. There are a lot of really clutch ways that you can use the board to your advantage in order to be able to shoot your opponent without them being close or within reach. And I truly believe that if you are able to position your harpies in key locations so that they can't reach Medusa, if you are able to use your opponent's fear to your advantage by flexing a little bit with playing bad cards in order to draw out feints, and if you are able to kite effectively, all three of these tips are how you're going to succeed with Medusa. I really hope that this guide helped you, and I really hope that it improves your next game as her. If it does, definitely drop a comment down below, and if you have any questions, you can always ask, whether it's in the comments down below or with any of the social medias. I have links to those in my description. Now, if you are looking forward to the rest of this series, we're going to be going through more boxes of Unmatched, so definitely click subscribe, click that bell notification if you want to be notified when my next video releases. Thank you so much for watching today, and with that, let's go ahead and drop the beat.